Hello dear friends, in this video we are going to talk about the psychological models of learning. There are three psychological models of learning. This is the learning process. The three psychological models have been mentioned. The first one is Behaviorist Model, the second Constructivist Model, and the third one is Social Constructivist Model. Behaviorist Model. A teacher shows a student and teaches him or her how to act to certain stimuli. It follows two laws: loss of effect and loss of exercise. Loss of effect means satisfaction is equal to strength and discomfort is equal to weakness. Okay, so what does this actually means? Law of effect, it states that behaviors that lead to satisfying outcomes are likely to be repeated, whereas behaviors that lead to undesired outcomes are less likely to recur. In simple words, if a child or a student does something and the teacher appreciates him and he gets in return some sort of souvenirs or a good sort of remarks, this will strengthen his learning ability and he will try to show more good performance as well. Discomfort is equal to weakness. This means that if a student is not given a good remark or is not motivated, and he will all of a sudden start losing his interest in learning something, or start losing his interest in that given subject, so which may cause the weakness in that subject. This principle of a behaviorist model, this was mostly suggested by most of the learning theorists, and they accepted it as well. They said it's a valid point, but it was mainly developed by Edward Lee Thorndike. And initially he drew parallels between positive outcomes, and he said that it would be termed reinforcements by the behaviorist, and negative outcomes which should be referred to as punishments in that case, as I have already explained to you. In the case a good remarks are given and a person is motivated, the student or the child will show improvement in learning, whereas if the punishments are given, or in that case it becomes ineffective, and the person's learning ability becomes ineffective. The second rule over here mentioned is the law of exercise. Law of exercise over here states that response that occur in a given situation become more strongly associated with that situation. And he suggested that these two laws could account for all behavior. Means it's not only while learning, but once you are practicing and drilling one thing again and again, and you're continuously repeating that thing, so a person or a child shows better result. It happens in your day-to-day life as well, even when you're trying to build some sort of skills in you, and for the betterment of your skills, you have to practice that. The drill is again, you have to keep on working upon that again and again, and it helps in yielding the better results. So these were the two laws which are presented by behaviorist model, and actually it depends upon student only. In this case, child is not allowed to interact with others, and there's nothing mentioned about the society, how the society can help him in learning. So behaviorist model is all about living creatures, whether animal or human. They learn by building up association between their experiences, by thinking and by their behavior. So there's no interaction mentioned over here in this case. And behavioral responses, they can be conditioned to a stimulus as well. For example, in the case of dogs, that the dogs, they are trained to salivate on hearing a bell. This was an experiment which was done on dogs, and also called as building artificial intelligence, that a condition arises and a person or a child knows, I am supposed to behave in this way to the required, according to the stimuli. Conditioning responses is based on the effective use of reinforcement, and once they is this point is about law of exercises, that once a person is continuously asked to reinforce that thing, and this rises to a condition that normally or naturally a person will show a better results. Impact on classroom. In case we are talking about students or we are talking about learner is passive here. He's not active, because he is unable to think by himself. He's not invited to think actually, and he's not motivated to present his own points or opinions. So therefore learner is passive. Selection, pacing and evaluation of activity is controlled by teacher. Again, there is nothing in control of the student. Everything, the selection of the topic, and with which pace are they supposed to complete that topic, and how are the children going to be evaluated, or the activities going to be evaluated, all these things are controlled by the teacher. The subject content is tightly designed because it doesn't allows the students to have any sort of hands-on experience activities, and usually it is dictated directly by the teacher. So the subject content is usually tightly designed, and there is no sort of flexibility. Programmed teaching learning is limited. A child cannot relate with his daily life experiences because there are no daily life application where a student can absorb from his surroundings, or he doesn't get ample time to think about his conditions and about his experiences. So actually he's just learning, and he cannot relate any of the topics learned by him in the classroom with his daily life. And there's little connection with the classmates, because social interaction is hindered in such class where the teacher is playing the role of a dictator. So the usually the student, they cannot communicate and they cannot connect with their classmates at any level, so there is no connection, and thus there is no sharing of ideas as well. A lesson becomes too hard for students. Such lessons, they become actually hard for students, as they are unable to relate it with their daily life experiences, and teacher usually fails to come at the level of the students. So students, they are unable to get to the point of the teacher, or to understand the lesson as well. So it creates sort of hindrance and difficulty in the learning of students. The next model is constructivist model. In this model, a child learns by experiencing and by integrating with previous lesson, and this model is based on Piaget's theory. Okay, so the first point, that is a child learns by experiencing. No doubt a child thinks about his daily life experiences, and the lesson is also integrated with the previous lesson, that the teacher explains the motive of the lesson, that you have already read this and now you are supposed to be reading this, and in these ways you can integrate the subjects with your lessons, or different lessons with your topic. And the two main points mentioned by Piaget is are written over here. Assimilation, they fit new ideas from experience to existing thinking. And the second one is accommodation. In accommodation, changing their existing thinking to fit new ideas. So once again over here, when we are talking about this thing, so this actually constructivist model, it believes that development follows an invariant pattern. Development keeps on coming with the age of a child. So the same way, if a student previously had any sort of ideas from his experience, so he is supposed to change that. When he grows, he comes across many different things, he forms new experiences, and then it's possible that he might change his existing thinking. The child, he moves through several clearly definable stages, and in that case the cultural and environmental effect age of transfer, it takes place. The child is usually involved in activity for cognitive development to take place, and while in being engaged in the activity, he learns lot many different things. So usually the conceptual growth occurs by the process of assimilation. And accommodation, so accommodation is also the same step. It is just continuity of assimilation. They're changing their existing thinking to fit new ideas. The children are flexible enough, or the teacher is flexible enough to let a child change his thoughts, which has been discussed or described in the topic of the lesson, or even in his real lives, and this leads to adaptation. So basically the constructivist model is all about adapting a new information. So children, they are active scientists. They are inquiring, exploring, and discovering as well. So in the first model, we learned as in behaviorist model that the children, they are passive because they are not allowed to inquire anything or explore anything, and um, they are unable to change your thoughts because they are totally dictated by the teacher. So in this case, constructivist model, children, they are allowed to explore and discover something. So in constructivist model, so children, they are called as active scientists. Impact on classroom. What is the impact of classroom if you are adopting a constructivist model of learning? So the learner is active. Selection pacing is controlled by learner to some level. Although the teacher is assigning the topic and they have everything planned by themselves, but still there are learners who help at some level to control the pace of their learning. And the third point is reinforcement. Reinforcement or motivation is intrinsic. The learner learns because he or she wants to learn. Because the children, they are motivated, they are active, and they are actually participating in the class, and they are interested in learning more points, or they are interested in learning and researching and all. So basically, the motivation is interesting because they want to learn. That is why they are learning. Curriculum or syllabus coverage is hard to monitor. Every child has a different ability to learn, and in that case it becomes difficult to monitor that how much syllabus has been understood by each of the child. So individualized learning programs, they lead to complex classroom organization. It leads to complex classroom organization. Some of the students, they are able to understand a concept quickly, whereas in some other cases, the students for students it becomes hard to pick up the concept or to understand them, and then taking the follow up for the teacher becomes a little bit complicated, whether the students have understood that and whether they are able to link the new information with their previous information or not, and is there any growth in their mindset or not. So it leads to complex classroom organization. Few students may become demotivated when a child is unable to understand, and the concept is not that clear, and for that specific children the learning is not taking place, so they usually become demotivated and they stop learning. So stage theory and the idea of readiness, it means that learners are prevented from making the progress that they could make, usually because they are not active or they take some time to understand a concept. What happens is they are prevented from making the progress, and not all learning can be discovered. Everything, all the children, they don't have the capability, or they are not capable enough to discover what the new learning process is about, and through experiences. So in that case as well, it acts as an hindrance for the learning of students. So although this constructivist model is suggested, it's better than behaviorist model, in which the teacher plays the role of a dictator, but still, because all the children, they do not get equal chance, and thus few students may become demotivated. So this is effective. Learner is active. Pacing is also controlled to some level by the student, but still this won't be as effective for all the students as it must be. The third model, which is socially accepted everywhere in the world, is the social constructivist model. And what does this model tells us? This actually tells us that a child learns by interacting with different groups of people, and the theory was presented. The first point was zone of proximal development. A child learns through problem solving under adults guidance, but in collaboration with more peers, or a child's culture and language also affects his learning. So in this they are saying a child over here, he learns under adult guidance, but he also works. A child also needs to collaborate with more peers. It means that a child, he learns better in a good social environment where he is given an opportunity to collaborate or to work along with his other friends. And a child's culture and language also affects his learning, because we are talking about social constructivist. So it is constructivist, but it involves the society of a child as well. So child's culture and language, they also play a part in the learning of a student. When we talk about child's culture and language, we actually mean by the parents and the family, and about their behavior, how do they behave around the children, and how the children assimilate the skills or the strategies and knowledge, understanding and attitudes as well, and the languages, etc. So child is continuously influenced by the culture and language. And when we talk about zone of proximal uh, development, in that case we talk about two three main points, in which the first point is this, that the distance between the actual development level as determined through problem solving, that a student he learns by problem solving, and thus it's a sort of potential development under adult guidance. Adult guidance must be there, as we see nowadays that a teacher is supposed to play a role of a mentor, and with support a child's understanding can be extended far beyond individual independent learning approaches. A child alone might not be able to learn to that extent as much a child can learn under the guidance of the teacher or any adult, and with the help of other students. A support can be given after discussing with the teacher or other children or parents. In that case, nowadays we have television, books and computers as well, there are internet as well, but then once again they are considered as social weapons, or social sites which help them in the growth of the children. Child can scaffold or construct understanding at learning zone. They are able to construct new understanding, and they are able to make or some new things, or mold some new things. So thus social constructivist model is the highly acceptable model nowadays. um, when we talk about 2021, and in which the student is given an opportunity to interact with others. Impact on classrooms: a learner is socially active, and the teacher's role is as mentor or as reflective agent. Group work is common, and collaborative problem solving, emphasis on scaffolding. Regular review of both work and learning. Learning is progressive and focuses on higher level skills. The work is highly motivating. You know, when you have a good team always lead to positive and constructivist results, highly productive results. So it should be ensured that students, they are given enough of resources and the opportunities in which they are allowed to discuss about higher level skills, and this is quite motivating as well. So thank you, dear friends, thank you for watching this video. Hopefully it helped in learning and discussing about the three models of psychological models of learning, and hopefully you will check your work according to this and your teaching practices as well. Thank you once again.